Hi, I'm Dan Marks with Mactores. We are an AWS advanced consulting partner. And at Mactores, we specialize in data analytics. Today, we're going to be talking about migrating Oracle data warehouses to modern solutions. I'm joined by my colleague, Bal Harar, who is our CEO and principal consultant at Mactores. Also, at the end, we have a really great announcement for you. So please make sure you stick around, and we'll share that with you shortly. So, hey, Bal, I remember us talking a while back about how one of my customers is trying to move out of an on-premise Oracle licensing and adopting cloud-based data warehouses. And you got pretty excited, and we got into a pretty lengthy discussion about a recent project we did for one of our manufacturing customers. So can you share with our audience today more about this customer situation and why they were moving out of Oracle in the first place?
I can totally relate and empathize with customers trying to lessen their pain of licensing with Oracle and the scalability challenges on premise. So the customer, Dan, you're referencing is one of the largest hard disk manufacturing customers in Silicon Valley, who have been very loyal customers of Oracle over 20 years. But there was a time when the team could not innovate or build their analytics stack because they couldn't adapt to new machine learning techniques or use new analytics tools. Thus, their CIO and their entire data engineering team decided to move on. And they reached out to us. And their problem was they were running pretty large data sets using their data warehouse, which amounted to about 185 terabytes using their Oracle Exadata. And this was preliminary manufacturing analytics, and some of them use cases were corporate analytics. But preliminarily, a lot of their manufacturing analytics data contributed to their machine learning and machine learning use cases. And as they started hiring more machine learning and data scientist teams, they quickly realized Oracle data warehouse is not going to help them walk the modern data path any further. They had a lot of scalability issues, which also turned out to be cost issues with a lot of higher infrastructure and management cost. The data pipelines, the ETL was very slow. And of course, Oracle licensing was the major contributor.
You know, as you tell this description about our customer, I am sure there are many amongst us who are going through similar challenges or have thought or talked about colleagues about this. So there has to be an alternative to this age-old 1980s systems. So tell us, how did we help them see this path forward for them?
We helped them with the entire strategy to transform their data analytics platform and bring them to 21st century with our modern data strategy, which includes helping them and migrate them to a massively scalable and parallelizable data warehouse like Amazon Redshift. By adopting it, they could achieve 100x faster data pipelines or ETL processing, which was due to the almost 100% in-memory use of Apache Spark using Amazon Glue, and other tools like Amazon DMS, S3, Snowball, and a bunch of others, which really transformed the way their entire analytics platform helped their machine learning teams to adopt new and modern ways of accelerating their machine learning solutions. All these technologies with proper planning and with the help of customer cater to their latest and greatest algorithms and AI techniques, which their team wanted and which ended up being extremely helpful for their business to take right kind of actions and to build new products and bring a lot of new services to the market.
Okay, so let's get into this. Let's dig in. So what is this modern data strategy? We hear all these overused phrases like modernization and transformation. So let's make sense of it for our audience today.
Great question. So what is a modern data strategy? The data has been critical for every organization. Data is highly critical from decisions perspective, from pattern perspective, to build new products, to build new services. Unfortunately, in every organization, medium, small, large, the data is always kept in silos because the systems which build data generate data are generated by different systems like ERP, CRM, manufacturing tools, or in cases of sales, the CRM tools, etc. So these silos create of an inconsistent view of the entire company in different data marts. So one major
Let me ask you,
challenge.
you mean users? You mean these different users are looking at just specific data on their own and
Exactly.
only seeing that view? Okay.
Yeah. And whereas these users needs to correlate this data across different tool sets. So a sales guy might need to have access to ERP data, not only the sales motion or not only the customer data. So it is important to bring all these silos together and make it accessible to the entire organization. So the decision making can be done much better by the team in the collaboration. So how to achieve this is the main problem we are trying to solve as part of the modern data strategy. Now, however, even if there are challenges, these were the just primary challenges, but there are deeper problems when you are trying to bring all these data together from different systems, because the data types or the way data is organized in the systems is different, it's disparate. We need to figure out ways to bring parity to the entire data sets from different places. Then machine learning adoption is a challenge because there is a lot of lack in skill in the marketplace. At the same time, when you're bringing all the organization data centrally, the governance, compliance, privacy, data protection is paramount of importance, because that would define how the company is going to operate with high level of compliance in each of these industries. So the modern data strategy heads down to taking care of data, bringing it from different silos centrally, and taking care of 360-degree of access, governance, privacy to the data, while giving the collaborative access to the entire team. Now let's see how it was done before. Originally, the concept of business intelligence, data warehousing came into picture, and customers started creating data silos, building different data warehouses, building data silos for different types of databases. So all the RDBMS systems used to have data warehouses, all the unstructured data, structured data used to have different data warehouses, which created more challenges because now you have data all over different places with different governance models. The modern data strategy essentially talks about centralizing the data in a data lake and then allowing different tool sets to have access to the centralized data with more governance, high security, and the right kind of mechanism to control and audit the access to this data lake. And that is what
this looks like a flywheel model, right? You're not as rigid. You can maneuver around your data as best as possible with this new model, this new modern strategy.
Yes, essentially, I would call this as a centralization of the data and distribution of access. So flywheel, I would essentially say flywheel is a little different. Flywheel is a evolution of your data from databases to data warehouses to a data lake. But essentially, this is the end of the flywheel, where you would reach to a level of modernity, reach to a level of evolution where you can centralize your data in a data lake, which now can act as a data fabric for all of these use cases which you may have in your organization, while centralizing data with the right kind of governance, and can be consumed for different use cases within your organization.
Okay, makes sense. Yep.
And what is the value of this strategy? What is the benefit businesses are getting? So one of the most important aspects we have to see is, by just making 10% of data more than what you are currently exposing, the Fortune 1000 companies have seen up to $65 million increase in their net income.
I gotta stop you right there. That's 10%. You're just taking a little bit. So you're just
Yes.
taking maybe one department even of just a few days or months of data, and you're already combining it and having an incredible value add to what you're trying to do from a business perspective.
Absolutely. That is just because the amount of correlation you can build out of a data lake is phenomenal to improve on efficiencies, improve on a lot of processes within your organization, also to innovate. So this itself can translate into a huge ROI over 5 years. And if we go through this Forbes article, and it is pretty detailed out here, which elaborates in detail how customers have seen up to 415% ROI over their investments in these modern data strategies. And that's a huge gain for any company to invest and to start small and grow big with the data lake. And it's not only about the ROI, but then we are also entering into an era where everybody's trying to reduce the cost. COVID and post-COVID, everybody's trying to figure out how do we reduce operational cost and increase operational efficiencies. So these modern data strategy also look after the third and most important pillar, the cost of the solution. And that is, we have seen significant up to 48% reduction in operational cost when you go
I think you're right.
modern data strategy.
You're right here, right? You don't do any major movement modernization if you don't have the costs understood and well controlled, and giving yourself a significant value on that. So excellent point. So why don't we talk a little bit about some of the use cases? Like, where is this strategy useful? How do we apply this to everyday needs that our audience is listening to?
Great. So use cases, there are varied use cases. Now, the challenge with that is you cannot attest to every use case in your organization.
Let's just pick on one or two today, so we don't
absolutely
go too crazy.
So we generally recommend customers to start with a use case and then build a framework with that use case, or build a data lake with that use case, and then expand and grow across all these use cases. So we generally have identified to improve operations, demand forecasting, financial forecasting, fraud detection are phenomenal use cases in organizations where they are into manufacturing, they are into SaaS sales. Customers who are trying to improve their customer experience, improve their sales cycle, improve their top line, would invest a lot into personalization, contact intelligence, helping customize their individual customer experience, providing more machine learning techniques to give right kind of solutions, right kind of products to their end customers. Customers who are trying to improve their marketing, outreach, branding, brand positioning, would use solutions like Customer 360, churn analysis to completely improve and overall their entire marketing strategy. At the same time, we have also seen IT and application teams using these data applications to take care of their development operations and database applications to improve their internal systems, as well as take better decisions within their development environment. So there are various use cases. There are many powerful business use cases, and there are many powerful IT use cases. The most value we have seen are from business use cases, where business is directly getting value out of the modern data strategy.
So let's talk about an example. You have something you can share?
Absolutely. So one of the value proposition is for our customers is to get a customer 360 dashboard. And one of the use case is to get the entire customer analytics of their behavior patterns, of their purchase patterns, of how they became a customer and how they engaged with their support team, and their sentiment analysis, how they interacted with their teams, their support teams, their sales teams, as well as their internal product teams, is being analyzed and gathered into a data warehouse like Redshift, over which customers have built a full 360-degree view of their customers' experience, helping to take decisions of how to find similar customers who have a similar kind of profiles, demographics, and then reach out and market to customers who are highly engaged with them and find out patterns in the marketplace to analyze the customer demographics profiles and then reach out and target them within the rest of the customer use space. So to perform these kind of analysis, the best I would say platform we could use is something like Amazon Redshift. So now let us see how Redshift actually helped this customer, right? So what is Redshift? So I will talk for a brief moment what is Redshift and why Redshift, right? So Redshift is a phenomenal product from AWS. Over a decade has been used by multiple thousands of customers, and it is a massively parallelizable data warehouse, essentially. So what does that mean? It doesn't run as a single machine. You can scale out and add as many nodes as you want, and add as many as data inside the Redshift cluster, which is distributed across the nodes. So it's not restrictive from the storage perspective. It's not even restrictive from the compute perspective. So it's not a vertically scalable product where you don't go and keep on upgrading your hardware. You can just keep on adding more nodes when you need more compute power, more storage power, which gives that elasticity to the data warehouse. But it's more than that. It gives you a lot of more power, compute power, as well as the way it is architected provides a very fast user interface to query it. So this IDC report pretty articulately summarizes the direct ROI of customers who have migrated to Redshift. Up to 408% has been achieved just by taking their conventional technologies, moving towards more modern philosophy of data lakes, and then using Redshift as their data warehouse for the data warehouse use cases. Now, in your data, everything is not a data warehouse use case. There are some use cases where data warehousing is the perfect use case, and that is where Redshift shines the best. Use cases for Redshift is, one is, of course, you need BI analytics, which is more SQL driven, but not, what about machine learning, right? So how can machine learning teams also use data warehouses? Necessarily, machine learning teams like to use raw data, and they would largely rely on data sets on data lake and wouldn't venture much around structured data. But they, at some point in time, they also need a lot of structured and processed data from data warehouses. And that is where Redshift has a tremendous integration of using machine learning integrated within Redshift. You can also build models within Redshift, integrate models within Redshift as a function, and compute data within Redshift. So Redshift has a very deep integration with a lot of machine learning products of AWS like SageMaker.
It sounds like, Bal, that this is a very kind of, I don't know, customer obsessed, customer centric approach, right? Where we got all these fully integrated offerings, and so part of that just really helps with that, seeing the path forward on the migration, right? Because you've got all these different choices that you can put in your process. So let's talk through that a little bit.
Absolutely, there are many choices. Unfortunately, the problem is there are too many options. but that's the fun part of it, that you don't have to rely on one product or one service or one thing. You have options and you have many ways to achieve it. So that's why you need a strategy. That's why we call this a modern data strategy podcast and not a modern data solution podcast, right? So there is no one single solution. There is no one single one single box for everything what you can put and just take home. So coming back to Redshift, Redshift has like more than hundreds of features, which allows some of them which will be very helpful, like data sharing, which is used by many of our customers today, where they build all of their data and they want to share with their vendors, they want to share that with their customers. There are areas where they want to integrate with outside their organization in a secured way, without giving them access to their internal data sets. They want to just share the data which they are already computing, so they don't have to transport using FTP, email, Excel, data sharing. They can just share their data out of Redshift, which can be directly accessible by the Redshift of their customer or their partners, or anybody who are affiliated to them. And similarly, there are other use cases where the customers are looking for is exposing their data through APIs, materialized views. I won't go too much technical into all of these specific features, but the expanse of this particular technology built over last 1 decade is so high, is that there are few use cases which are left, which cannot be used using Redshift. So Redshift today is almost like 98% use case friendly for most of the data warehouse use cases which are possible in all these industries, in our experience. So
there's a lot of tools, right? So I think your point here is the tools galore. You can align to the right use case, etc. So let's though get into kind of that migration strategy and approaches, right? Because I think these are different things.
So just before we jump into migration, I just want to make everybody aware, all of our listeners aware, about something which is cool, which has launched in recent days, called as Amazon Redshift Serverless. So conventionally, data warehouse world has been bogged by this concept of having a server, having infrastructure, running everything inside a server. You have to provision it, maintain it, manage it. Redshift just came out with something called as serverless. You don't even need to launch a server. You can use Redshift as a serverless tool. It's like an API. You put your data in it and process the data and start using as a querying language. You get all the features which Redshift offers out of the box, as if it's a server running behind, but you are not paying for a 24/7 running cluster. Mm-hmm. So, and you don't have to maintain any infrastructure. You don't have to monitor it. It is working as any other API. And this is the beauty of it, that you plug and play all your information within Redshift and start using it as if it is an API. So awesome. Enough talk about Redshift and serverless. So how do we get there, right? So we're talking about strategies, right? So how do the users really adopt Redshift? How do we go and do our first POCs? How do we do our pilots? How do we make sure we get out of this technical debt? So there are a couple of options. There are many migration tools which are available, which allow us to migrate out of existing data warehouses. So AWS has something called as AWS Schema Conversion Tool and AWS DMS, which is Data Migration Service. So preliminary SCT is used to convert, say, the data types and the schema from your on-premise or any other data warehouse to Redshift. And DMS is where which is used to actually copy the data from your existing data warehouse, which is in terabytes, petabytes, to Redshift. So DMS is intelligent enough to understand the changes which are happening in your data warehouse, and then do a CDC, change data capture. So it has many cool functionality. I can talk about 3 podcasts talking only on DMS. So I'm not going to go deep into DMS.
But we'll set those up for the future, no problem.
Absolutely. But then there are many other services which complement these migration toolkit with lot of ways to take your data to the Amazon data centers, right? So one of the major challenge our customer faced was they had 185 terabytes of data. Transferring that over internet pipe would have been impossible. Like it would have taken months. Even with 1 gig or 10 gig pipe, it would have taken months for them to transfer 185 terabytes of data. So the challenge was solved using something called a snowball. So we could copy all the data in snowball, move it to S3, use DMS with snowfall, and transfer the data to the Redshift cluster. Similarly, there are many different uh, options of using files, using data sync, using FTP transfer family. So once the data is transferred, you need to accept new data coming in. So you need FTP kind of ingestion. So family of AWS transfer family allows you to do that. And then there are many other options when we can go deep into each of these options and understand them better in the following podcasts. But what I'm trying to say is the preliminary tool which we use for migration is DMS, SCT, and then there are a bunch of ways we can ingest data, bring data inside the AWS ecosystem for different use cases.
Val, this is fantastic. So now I know AWS, like I talked about before, is super customer obsessed and has all of these fully integrated offerings of tools to help customers take their path forward on migration, right?
Yep. But then having tools and having a migration strategy are two different things.
Yeah, good point, Val. So let's get real with, how does Mactores, as an AWS advanced consulting partner with Redshift service delivery, and data analytics competency, and data migration service delivery, how do we help the customers come up with this path for them?
Absolutely. So as a consulting company, our job is to find processes and find strategies and bring our experience to the table and help them alleviate a lot of the challenges, as well as make sure we de-risk our customers from the pitfalls based on our experiences working over these many years and our experience with our detailed read through all of this documentation.
So, you say de-risk, right? Big point. And then you also, I hear you talk a lot about accelerating, right? So de-risking and accelerating the process, right?
Absolutely. Very good point. So de-risking does not only come by experience, de-risking also comes by automating a lot of the stuff we do. So let's look into it. Let's see how do we do things. So one of the preliminary thing is we start with migration objectives is to identify the current cost, the current investments, reduce the migration cost, have minimum disruption or absolutely no disruption to the business, because this is the data warehouse we are talking or the data platform we are talking, and businesses take decisions on these platforms. And then post migration, the adoption of this technology is very important. So we take care of not only take care of the migration, but adoption once it is done. Challenges with adoption, challenges with the user feedback, etc. And then there are IT side of things from the perspective of scaling, governance, agility, and performance. So these are a couple of migration objectives we start with. Now let's see what we do after these objectives is what are the considerations, right? So there are preliminarily 6 considerations in our framework. One is the data movement, the data modeling. How do we take data from your sources and model it for data warehouse? How do we build the transformations of this data once migrated to Redshift or during migrating to Redshift? How do we take care of aggregates and snapshots of your data? And how fast do you want the data to be updated in Redshift? So we have had customers demanding real-time data refreshes in Redshift, which is totally possible with Kinesis, which is near real-time, which is 15 minutes, is totally possible using Glue ETL. So there have been demands of high refresh speeds, low refresh speeds, based on the cost and based on how customers' business needs it for to make sure their business can take better decisions at the right time. This data refresh becomes a very critical aspect of our strategy. And then security. And when we are talking about getting data in the data lake and then in Redshift. There are so many aspects of tokenizing data, protection of the data, where we are encrypting the columns when we are tokenizing it, or we are making sure the personalized information is properly protected. If it is HIPAA compliance, the compliance has been followed based on different compliances in the industry, right? The data has been structured and organized properly.
I know, Bal, that from a business perspective, obviously security is super important and such. But when we talk about that data refresh and getting near real time, when somebody's used to a daily or a weekly or even a daily dump, and now you're telling them you can have it within minutes. Boy, it gets everybody excited from the business perspective and gets everybody kind of aligned to getting this figured out. And then obviously security and all the other things fall into place because you have stewards of that, making sure all that's taken care of for the organization.
Absolutely. Yep. And many of our customers have been interested in first figuring it out. How do we update our data at higher speeds? So you're right. Mm-hmm. We started with customers with refresh speeds of a week.
Right.
Literally a week. They used to wait for data for a week. In 2020, that was a customer in 2020. In right. Year 2020, waiting for a data for a week is like being in 1960s. So that was a phenomenal use case where we took them from a week update to almost near real time to 15 minutes. They were not ready for real time data for sure. They were happy with 15 minutes update. But then we have customers who are preliminary into marketing analytics who need real time update. It's almost like real time analytics and then updating the data warehouse almost real time.
Good point.
So going back to our story, right? How did we migrate this customer? So we talked about our philosophy, our objectives, our considerations, but how did we take care of not affecting the end user while keeping their existing system running? What are the steps we took? So this is a sample of a strategy, and I have tried to summarize it in a as graphical format as I could. And here we can see there are two paths. One is a path which is already running, a business as usual with your existing system, call it Oracle for now. And then there is another path which is going towards Redshift. And at each stage, you will see we are taking the data snapshot from your current system, transforming it, testing it, remodeling it, and then performing validation. And then once the data is migrated, after validation, we start building, say, the ETL for the data sets. And then once the ETL is finished, we keep both data in sync from the source system till all the reporting tools, all your end user tools are migrated to Redshift. And once the data quality, data lineage, the entire data security is taken care of, and the reporting tools and application are fully integrated with Redshift, that is the time we take sign off of the business owners to cut over from your old system, which in this case was Oracle, to Redshift. So the strategy right now, it looks pretty simple. And since this is a podcast, I want to keep it simple. But it entails a lot of hard work in understanding the nitty-gritties of these systems, the timelines, and the data sets and the correlations between them, and understand how exactly are we going to take those steps to achieve this cutover by a go live date. And this is what we call as designing a migration strategy. Now, what is our approach to reach to this strategy, right? So, and beyond. So we start with define. So we have steps called as define, design, move data, move the process, and optimize. So we start by defining. We define the data sets. We define how we are going to capture. We design the data sets, and then we move the data. Then we move the process and optimize. Now, here is where then the de-risk portion comes into picture. So when we talk about define, we use, of course, Amazon tool sets like SCT. But when we talk about design, this is where we have built our internal automation tools, where we do the schema design, where we do the automation in identifying what would give more performance, what would provide better taxonomy, topology for the data within Redshift based on different use cases or different industries we are working with. When we move data, again, we go back to the AWS tool sets, as well as we use some of our internal tool sets to help compress the data if we are moving it over the wire, or use AWS tool sets like DMS and Snowball, etc., to send data over, out of the internet, not through the internet, but through conventional systems like Snowball, and shift it to AWS. But again, when we move back to process, this is where our lineage systems, our glue converter, migrating the ETLs from the old conventional systems, we have a phenomenal accelerator for ETL. So we take your existing ETL, maybe stored procedures, maybe Informatica or data stage, and convert that within few weeks, not months, within few weeks, from your conventional ETL tool to AWS Glue, which out of the box supports Redshift.
Paul, I'd like to just highlight to our listeners that these accelerators are really critical, and we can go into great depth on these, but these are game changers. And so every time I've been in conversations, this is what moves the needle for people. So I know you're explaining, a variety of different tools here, but these accelerators really make a significant difference. I just wanted to highlight that while you were kind of talking about that there.
You're right, absolutely. And just to give you a context of what difference do they make, in our previous customers, in this our customers' use case, they took a competitive bid of 3 vendors. We were not only the most cost effective, but we were also doing it 3x faster than other vendors, because we were using automation, and because we were using automation, we didn't have a lot of man hours to charge, and due to that, we were also de-risking a lot of manual labor, which needed a lot of manual testing as well as auditing from their team. So it not only reduced the cost of manual efforts, but it also reduced the cost of validation from their team, because we were using a lot of auto validation techniques and auto testing techniques to reduce customers and customers' time and customers' toil during this migration.
Yeah, so that really sums up the de-risking, the accelerating process, and also just the customer obsessed offering of AWS through Redshift and all the APIs and various tools that are associated with that. So I know that for a lot of folks, it's a tremendous amount to take in, but we would like to provide you an offer to see how this can work in your world. So at the beginning, I promised that we'd had something of value for you. So thank you for sticking around today and listening to our Redshift focused podcast. But we would like to offer a data warehouse assessment for you, and a full report that you can internalize. So we'll have an executive summary that you'll be able to socialize with everyone, get the various business buy-in and executive sponsorships that are necessary, but also tools for everyone that can utilize, whether it's a gap analysis, access to our discovery automation. And again, we'll walk you through that process so you know exactly what's happening there. And then just the overall strategy and the efforts that they're going to take through migration. And there'll be kind of a heat map associated with that, right? Some of the easier functions versus some of the more complex and longer term. So you can have a very good visual and a very good idea of what your path forward may be, or a couple of alternative paths. I don't want to suggest how many paths until we have a chance to talk about that. But as an AWS Advanced consulting partner. We do have access to funds from AWS. They do co-invest. And so we would like to make that offer to you that we can put in our requests and get some funding to help with POCs and pilots and such. But thank you all for being with us today. Again, we are an advanced consulting partner. Our development of these automation tools is absolutely a key differentiator, which enables our customers to have great transformations, right, by leveraging these tools and these experiences. And our partnership with AWS has spanned for 12 years now, and and we have a number of different certifications and competencies, and happy to dive into that with anyone who has questions about that. So please reach out. Again, my name is Dan Ball. I want to thank you, sir, for all the insights and walking people through the examples that you gave. And we look forward to talking with you all in the future. Thank you.